Hi, my name is Vlokkie and I'm a South African producer. Well, I think that one of the big things for South Africa, the advantage of South Africa within local film structures, but also international film structures, is that really we've got phenomenal crews, we've got incredible locations, we've got a wonderful exchange rate, we've got a world in one country, we've got hundreds and thousands of indigenous stories to tell. But I think that we have a wonderful opportunity here, that we have the opportunity to work on local productions, but we also have an opportunity as crew and producers to dig into bigger international projects. I think that learning from the best and learning from bigger structures that can teach us, we can take that experience and we can then transfer that onto our South African projects. I've been asked once by a financier who gave somebody a certain amount of money, and the guy came back with a great film. It was perfectly adequate for the money that was given to him and or her. And the next time they gave the person double their money, but the guy came back with the same quality of film, the same kind of film. And the investor was like, "How's that possible? I gave the guy double the amount of money." And my response was, the difference is, the first movie, the guy begged and borrowed. His friends worked for nothing. The second movie, he paid the guys a little bit. And therefore, you really have to understand that there is a very sensitive balance between the amount of money that you receive, the goods that you can buy for that. But what added to that is also the experience of the person that you give the money for. I'm a firm believer in skills transfer. I'm a firm believer that people need to be taken up into structures where they can experience. If you want to make a R1 million movie, you need to work on a R5 million movie. You need to work on a R10 million movie if you want to make a R2 million. And the reason for me that is because you have to know and understand and see in practice what actually happens when you want to put more of the value on the screen. The process that goes with it, the pre-production that goes with it, the planning that goes with that. I think the biggest downfall to young producers is really that they forget the word is film business. You're in a business. It's a business like any other business. What we are ultimately, we're product producers. We are producing a product for the use at the end of the day. But if your product does not pay your bills, doesn't make your money, doesn't allow you to put something away for development for your next project, you're not going to become a successful film producer. It's very important. What's very important is to learn to collaborate. I know, and I always admire people in the film industry because they're strong, independent, strong-minded. I want to do my own thing. I hear you, it's absolutely so. But you need to learn to collaborate. It doesn't matter what your experience is. You could be Spielberg. Spielberg collaborates. What you have to understand as a young producer is, what is my strengths? Make sure that you know what your strengths are. But what more important is, learn what your weaknesses. Learn what you don't know. And make sure that you go and try and find advice from the best people that you've got access to work through it. On a small budget, you cannot afford to pay school fees. You want to have the best advice. You want to have people around you. You want to surround your people who are much better than what you are, so that they can teach you, so that the next movie you make, you don't have to make any mistakes. You can get straight into it and you can put all of that quality on the screen. You don't have to waste time. The other big thing is that it sounds, for all people, it sounds like a wonderful, glamorous world. It's not a job. It's a lifestyle. And it's going to stay a lifestyle. If you have 5 kids, if you've got 1 child, if you're married, if you're single, it's going to be a lonely road. It's just staying a lonely road because producers work 24/7. Weekend, there's no such a thing as a holiday. You go on your holiday. I mean, I've had many years that my kids maybe saw me 2-3 times in an entire year. 3 months a year we spent together. I don't think I've ever been on a holiday where not 75% of the time I work. Because part of a producer's job is to constantly develop. So you're not shooting, you have the luxury, you get your money in, finish your movie, distribute. No, you are constantly working, you're constantly developing. You've constantly got various projects in different forms and different levels of development. So for me, the big thing would be, as a young producer, learn collaboration. Another very important thing, as I said, it's business. Learn basics about accounting. Put structures in place. Check your bank account. Make sure the people that manage your money with you know what the value of that money is, that they understand where the money needs to go. So I'm going to mainly talk about the DTI incentive. There are grants, the NEVF, there's the lottery, there are other government institutions you can apply for, but I think that the rebate is maybe a bit of a muddy waters, because there's many of them, there's very specific, there's different criteria that's attached to each of them. I think the best thing to understand about the DTI rebate is that it's called an incentive, but it's an incentive for producers to invest. It's not a grant. It's actually, in fact, an expense rebate, meaning that if I've spent 100 Rand that physically gone through my bank account, and it's spent with a South African provider or a South African crew member, they will give me 25 Rand back, so it's 25%. That's the bottom line. There is no money that you have to pay back. It's what we call soft money, which would basically mean, let's say, for example, you have a 25% rebate. What would happen is that you would raise R1 million to spend to make your movie with. You will spend the full R1 million on the film, and then once it's completed, you would complete the final forms. The DTI will go through your bank account, very important. They'll make sure that the money has flown through your bank account and where it had gone to, and then they will give you the 250,000 Rand back, which you get it back to your investor that has now invested in your film, and hopefully your film will make more than 750,000 Rand on different platforms, which will put your movie in a positive return. But that really is the main criteria. There are certain criteria about the amount of money that you need to spend on these incentives. The Black Filmmakers incentive, that's the minimum spend, meaning you have to spend a minimum of 500,000 Rand. So if we go back to our example of you making a movie for R1 million, those films will qualify. If you're a South African film, that initial spend becomes 2.5 million Rand. So if on the international or a service incentive, the minimum spend needed, if you are a level 1 company, meaning you are majority black owned, is 12 million Rand would be your initial entry level spend. If you are not a level 1 or a level 2 company, you need a minimum of 15 million Rand. That's why your largest service incentives at that high level entry had really been created for studio films or international independent films. The rebates criteria are pretty much the same on all of them, meaning once again that the money needs to be spent in a South African company holder on South African crew. The benefit, there is a benefit on a service film, which means you can get an additional 5% if you maintain your HOD employment, so your head of department employment needs to be more than 20% of your crew, and it's the same for the other two incentives, minimum of 20%. There's an additional post-production incentive on the service criteria. But what is very important to me, and which I want to make clear, is that I've been in the industry for 34 years. And from the very first day that I walked onto a film set, I have worked with incredible HODs of all colors, creed, religion, education. And I think that is the incredible thing for me in South African film industry, is that there isn't any prejudice. There's no, you have to agree, because a lot of countries focus on degrees, a lot of countries focus on internships, but official internships. I think the wonderful about our industry is that people who are passionate, people that has the correct aptitude, has the possibility of accessing these rebates, and if they can get their finance plan or they get their film finance, they can actually go out there, make a film, and have the opportunity for distribution. So the answer to do you need to be creative to be a producer is no. I think it's very important, I've touched on it earlier, is you get different producers. If somebody phoned me and asked me to be a producer, I'm very clear that's not my skill. I'm not a creative producer. I'm not going to be able, I can read a script, I can tell you it's a good script, I can tell you what it's going to cost after I've read it. That's my skill. My skill is I know what it's going to cost. My skill is I know production. My skill is I know film. I know all aspects of film. My skill is that I'm a little bit like a extreme sports person. When you read the script, you see the line. You know, it's very, very seldom. In fact, I don't think I've ever had a show where I had to budget it 2-3 years or whatever it is, that show didn't happen exactly the way that it was budgeted and structured and very often scheduled right from the beginning. That's the skill. My skill is not being a creative. I can't expect a creative person to have that skill as well. And I think the great thing about producing is the collaboration, that wonderful partnership that you have, and the wonderful respect. I mean, I think the great thing about a partnership often is because you have different skills. What works in a good partnership is, and also acknowledging each other's differences, acknowledges each other's lack of understanding of what that person brings to the party. But it also needs complete and utter trust of each other's processes, opinions. I think one of the hardest things to learn from both sides of producing, whether I call myself I'm an executing producer, if you want to call that, but that's what I call myself, an executing producer, because bring me the thing, I can maybe even help you to get a bit of money, lay it out, but we can put the plan. And then it is the collaboration of setting the creative inside that production plan in order to make sure that you can get the best value for what it is. So firstly, no. Secondly, collaboration. A producer, once again, as I say, each of those producers, that allows the creative to focus, study, watch movies, get into whatever creatively, the feel the mood, what they want to put on screen, and that allows the executing producer to make sure that the money is correct, the financial structures are correct, the agreements are correct, the legal side, the cast, and all of that, so that the creative producer doesn't have to be burdened with all of the admin and deals. And certainly you don't want your creative producer that needs to work closely with the director, with the cast and the creative and the script element to get into all kinds of financial arguments. That you should leave, if you have the privilege of doing that, to leave to somebody else. My other advice would really be is that make sure as a producer, even if you're a creative producer, that you know all aspects of filmmaking. You know, go and visit the costume houses, go and visit the equipment houses, talk to gaffers, talk to grips, talk to every single department. Make sure that you understand structures as a producer in any of the disciplines of those two producing structures that you're going to work in. Coming from a very large company structure, I've turned into a very small, intimate company structure. We're 3 females that owns the company. But for me, I think that really, honestly, my most important person in my team is the youngest, smartest young producer on the block. You know, knowing that we're going to collaborate, knowing we're going to work together, but they're not going to stick around because they're too ambitious. They want to do their own thing. That person's going to be there to support, to learn, to work. They're going to work their butts off. They're going to support in all areas. For me, I've had incredible young people, young producers that's worked with me, that's built the structures with me. But as I say, then the idea was not to buy loyalty. The idea within those people is to skills transfer. And when they're saturated, when they've had enough, when they've learned, they move on. And that for me is my greatest success. So I'd say within a structure, whoever that person is for that 3 or 4 years, that is most probably my closest production ally and company structure ally. Then my next most important person is my financial and administration and corporate financial structure. For me, it's Valdila, who also runs the payroll structures. She's responsible for all corporate financing, DTI responsibilities, but somebody with a clear level financial head. So that's a very important time. And I just have to point out, I'm not a creative producer, so it's not that I constantly buy new material or invest in new books or structures. For me, it's a collaboration. I think after that would be my experienced line producers, production managers that I've done shows with, location managers, people that I constantly collaborate with in order to build up projects, whether it's pitching, whether it's finding locations for service work, whether it is supporting with budgeting, with scheduling, just tapping into their knowledge to create a product. Those are very important. And then after that, very important is collaboration. My collaboration with other producers and directors, assisting, helping them, creating their dreams, working on projects together. So I think in an order of 1 to 5, really, that would be the most important people that I surround myself with, and that I would deem my important team.